Yet another tale describes a maiden from Tongshan village who was captured by a party of hunters and taken away from her home. She invented the language and decorated woven textiles with it until her friends from home decoded the messages and managed to rescue her from capture. Hello there! Today we will explore a topic unknown to most men. Well, actually to the majority of women these days also. You see, many societies throughout history were patriarchal, and options for expression by the other gender were often limited. That's why women in China found a way to communicate in secret. But that is not all. Throughout the world, there were secret ways between the genders to communicate. And finally, we will take a look at the life's work of a linguist who created yet another language just for women. Let's explore the hidden languages of women around the world. Before we dive into languages specifically for and by women, I want to speak about a form of intergender communication since it closely relates to the topic. I'm talking about the language of flowers, sometimes also called florography. Many that have heard of it associate it with Victorian Britain, as the language had a famous golden era in this time. Lady Mary Wortley Montagu introduced it in England, where it was used to communicate secret messages. Not only did it matter what flowers were used, but also where exactly they were pinned to the clothing, or in which combination they were used with other flowers. If giving a bouquet of flowers to somebody, it even mattered if it was given with the right hand, meaning yes, or the left hand, meaning no. The language, however, could express much more complex meaning than a simple binary. The plant arnica or mountain tobacco, for example, when worn on clothing, meant, according to one sourcebook, "Let me heal thy grief." The ambrosia plant, Bok rosemary, asks the question, "Will you help me?" to the observer. The meadow saffron bears the melancholic message, "My best days are past." Now, as I said, Lady Montagu introduced this language of flowers to England in 1718. It was already quite popular in continental Europe, especially in the Ottoman Empire, which the lady had visited that year. The Ottoman use of flower language can be traced back to the earlier tradition of selam, which used pictures and objects to convey romantic messages. This was in turn based on even older Greek traditions that date back to antiquity and maybe beyond. Many Greek myths use flowers and plants for symbolism. The most famous examples are the laurel, which to this day means triumph, and the pomegranate, which is associated with death and the underworld, per the myth of Persephone and Hades. And of course, we can't talk about complex flower code without talking about ikebana, the Japanese art of arranging flowers. The art was used from the 14th to the 16th century onward. However, it is most likely based on older forms of floral use in art from both the Buddhist tradition as well as early medieval flower poetry. Since we are already in East Asia, let's move on to our first language exclusive to women. For the flower language to work as intended, it had to be understood by men as well, even if some women perhaps preferred other women as recipients of the message. The Nüshu language of China, however, was specifically made to exclude men from the conversation, and with good reason. Nüshu is a script with 600 to 700 characters, each representing a syllable. While it bears superficial similarity to regular Chinese script, it is distinct enough to be completely illegible to anyone not versed in it, and women made sure to teach its meaning exclusively to other women for hundreds of years. Its origins are shrouded in mystery and usually more legends than hard facts. Some say a lonely palace maiden invented it to communicate with her family via embroidery on textiles. Others say it was one particularly thick maiden from Tongkou village who wanted to teach her friends the written language. Yet another tale describes a maiden from Tongshan village who was captured by a party of hunters and taken away from her home. She invented the language and decorated woven textiles with it until her friends from home decoded the messages and managed to rescue her from capture. Most likely none of these stories are true as they are, but they do paint a picture. Women in medieval China were lacking freedom and often classical education. Few women were taught how to read and write regular Chinese script, so inventing a script of their own was a way to express themselves. These messages could be silent cries for help for women living in harsh conditions. This way, an abusive husband would be unsuspecting as the village's women prepared steps to help their sworn sister. It is notable that while the language mostly stayed locally confined to Jangyong County in the Hunan province, it still influenced vernacular of regular Chinese, particularly during the Song dynasty. Its peak usage was however recorded during the Qing dynasty, so in the late early modern to modern period. This was actually a time of much quiet rebellion. Most Han Chinese and other smaller Chinese ethnic groups were deeply unhappy with the Manchu ruling dynasty and felt oppressed. Nüshu was just one of many ways to defy the ruling class, with a turn to the study of martial arts being another. Nowadays, the language isn't really used actively anymore, but it is preserved as cultural heritage. A museum dedicated to the Nüshu language opened in 2002. In fact, some even felt the language was misused for marketing and commercial purposes, so it became somewhat of a contentious topic in recent years. The other women-exclusive language of today is even more obscure. Just like Nüshu, it is a designed language, but not one for secret communication, at least not in the real world. Its aim was to put a scientific theory to test. I'm talking about Láadan, the creation of linguist Z. Hayden Elgin. Its purpose was to test the Sapir-Whorf hypothesis. Now let us first briefly discuss what this linguistic theory actually is. Throughout history, many scholars and later linguists came to believe that language shapes perception of the world and the character of the speaker. For example, a speaker of French would be more romantically inclined, while a speaker of German would more highly value efficiency. You can part the theory into two main branches. The strong version, which says language determines the character of the speaker, and the weak version, which states that the speaker is influenced by the language. The former is largely dismissed by linguists today, while the latter still holds some influence over the field. If a language, for example, has more words for colors, the speaker might be more readily able to distinguish colors, while a language which structures time in a different grammatical way, for example associating past with backwards and future with forwards, might experience time differently than a speaker whose language does it the other way around. Now Láadan comes into play because gender roles can easily be influenced by language. Many Indo-European languages gender inanimate objects, for example. Hayden Elgin thus specifically designed her language to counter what she described as male-centered language limitations. Her language uses tone and a specifically designed vocabulary to more accurately convey emotions in speech. The language became the backbone of her sci-fi novel series Native Tongue, in which women are stripped of the rights by the government and thus devise the language to defy the authorities in secret. Sounds a lot like Nüshu, doesn't it? Hayden Elgin, however, started working on her novel series before the first research paper on Nüshu was published. Undoubtedly, however, she was inspired by the historical oppression of women and their ways to circumvent it. Ultimately, Hayden Elgin found that her experiment was a success at invalidating her own thought process. She wanted to show the advantages of languages designed with a feminist mindset, yet found that practically no other woman wanted to engage with it. Meanwhile, other constructed sci-fi languages, like Klingon, found great success. She concluded that there was no need for languages like hers. To be fair, constructed languages almost always suffer this fate, no matter the intention behind it. The few successes are usually upheld by extremely dedicated fan bases. So, I hope you enjoyed this little peek behind the veil of secret women languages. I certainly enjoyed researching the topic. If you did or have constructive feedback, please leave a comment. We also appreciate likes and subs. Thanks to my wonderful artist and to you viewers. See you next time. Bye. I'm gonna be real. I really love it when linguists create their own languages for their sci-fi and fantasy settings. It's so cool.